I think that there's a relatively common trajectory when people are starting off like on the beginning rungs of the ladder.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you know, you're in a small place where you're doing like me at bottom of the hill, like you're doing front of house and monitors from one board.
Yep.
You know, so you do it from the same console. And then as you graduate up to where you start working for bigger production companies or working in bigger venues, a lot of times if it's a place that has a dedicated monitor console, they'll start you out on monitors.
Yep.
A lot of times I'll put people in at monitors before they'll move them out to front of house. And I had never really gone that route because I was just working at bottom of the hill where I'm doing both. But then when I was touring, that quickly got to where I was just a front of house person.
Right.
So I never really actually cut my teeth as a monitor engineer, and I had a couple really negative experiences as a monitor engineer on just a couple random freelance gigs.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, holy shit, I was like terrified. I was like, I don't ever want to do monitors ever again, you know? And
not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not. And I think also too is just I also realized that for my personality type, because like there are some people who like once they've had a taste of each, they're like, oh, I love doing monitors.
Yeah.
I love being like interacting directly with the band.
Yeah.
Like I'm right there on the side of the stage. Like I put their packs on or I bring out their monitors with them or whatever, and they're like, it's a very, very hands-on thing, you know, and like so for them, the customer or the client is the actual performers.
Right.
And for me, the customer or the client who I'm trying to like influence and like everything is like just, you know, the audience.
Right.
And I find that for myself as like a very like introverted person, I just, it's like way easier for me to focus on one thing.
Yeah.
Like one big mix, and I find monitors kind of nerve-wracking because I'm like constantly like looking at everybody on the stage waiting for any kind of hand signal
Yep.
for something to change.
Yep.
And it's like just totally nerve-wracking. And for some people that's just like totally part of their workflow. They're just kind of like, they see something, they're like, cool, got it, boom, and they just like do it. And you know, and I just like, man, I can't do it. It's like if I was doing front of house for like an hour,
Yeah.
versus doing monitors for an hour, monitors I would walk away physically exhausted.
Yep.
Because my whole body would have been tense the whole time, like worrying about like all the different mixes going on the stage. I just like, I'm not cut out for it, you know.
I always say that mixing monitors is 10% technology and 90% psychology.
Yeah.
You know, cool thing about monitors though is that you have the opportunity to create a deeper rapport with the artist.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You have to get into their heads and you have to learn how they hear things. So if you got 7 guys on stage, you've got 7 mixes that all have a different philosophy.
Right.
But you have to synthesize all of those different philosophies into meld with your own so that you can translate what they're trying to achieve.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I totally agree with that. I mean, I would say what you said about monitors and like, you know, 10%, you know, technology and technique and skill and 90% psychology. I think that just applies to live sound in general.
Yeah.
You know, in a pretty big way. Well, maybe less so when you are at the level where you're playing big enough places where front of house is a bit more removed from the actual band.
Yeah.
But absolutely when you're at like the smaller capacity clubs where they don't have a separate monitor board and you're kind of doing everything.
Well, I mean, it applies to front of house in that the psychology part is the audience. Because what we do out in front of house is basically mind control. We're telling them what they want to hear.
Yeah, we're dictating the experience.
Dictating the entire experience. better or worse.
Yeah, yeah, for better or worse, depending on who's at the helm, and like, you know, yeah. I got to do the improvised. I got that gap in the window shade.
Oh yeah.
So I got to do the improvised fast food bag to keep keep the side of my head from getting burned off. I burn really easily, and like my ears will be all cooked. So there we go. Thank you, brown paper bag from Burger King. Yeah, I do think that it's important for a person to have a philosophy about how they do sound.
Yep.
And what they want to achieve on the audience's behalf, or on the performer's behalf. And I do think that you have to be tuned into psychology. You really do have to understand a lot about psychology, and like having a good bedside manner is a huge thing. It's a really big deal, because I definitely find, and people's, you know, performers in particular, their expectations change at different levels of experience. But I do find that in this sort of beginning, when all of us are on the lower rungs, when the musicians are maybe not quite as experienced and they haven't experienced a certain thing where they're kind of like, oh, I have to be at that level all the time, where it's like, okay, that's where I really want to be.
Yeah.
And when an engineer doesn't have as much experience, my observation has been over the years that bands are way more, when it comes to the psychology thing, bands are way more lenient and forgiving of someone who doesn't have as much skill and technique, or they're confined to not working with the best tools, if they are sincerely like trying their best. And really and they're like cool and a nice person to get along with.
Right.
I think most musicians and performers at a certain strata would rather have that experience than the opposite extreme, where someone's really good at sound but they're an insufferable asshole.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so with the psychology thing, it really is important to like be able to just get along with people and like try your best and be helpful to them. Because even if you are super skilled and you're kind of a dickhead, like your career's not likely to go very far. You know, at least the nice person can always get better.
Right.
You know, whereas the really skilled person may not ever get nicer.
Right.
They might just always be an insufferable asshole.